Roccat are trying something new with the Kain series. There's a lot to like, but there are a few things that may not be what some want. In this review, I'm looking at the 122 AIMO wired and the 202 AIMO wireless. They're the same shape, and that's where we start. So this one has a mostly flat design. I call this kind of shape really safe, because you can put your fingers anywhere on it, meaning when I recommend it to people, they should be able to find a way to grip it comfortably. It has good angles, nice and subtle curves, and it even has some nice comfort curves in the buttons. My one little complaint about the sides is at the base. It kind of feels a little bulbous, like it's bulging out a little bit. Similar to the Logitech G305, but not as bad. And the stability is fine. The button heights are about 2.4 and 2.7 centimeters, which in my opinion is too high, even for bigger hands. And at the back, this curve downward means claw grippers may not be as comfortable resting their palm. I rest part of my palm in that area, so I don't like mice that curve like that. That said, I can palm grip it fairly well, so I'd recommend it for hands under 18 centimeters for palm, and between 19 and 22 centimeters for claw and fingertip. Ideally though, with a grip width of about 6.1 centimeters, I think it would suit people with hands about 10.2 centimeters wide and 21 centimeters long, because the length is about 12.5 centimeters. I think this is a mouse people will appreciate more the more they use it, but it feels a bit odd at first. The hump is about 4.25 centimeters high, and it's in the middle. Here it is next to some other mice, so you get a general idea of the size. As for the weight, about 92 grams for the 122 and 106 for the 202 wireless. The weights are okay, but I do prefer lighter. They were working on the switches a lot, so here's a listen to all the buttons. Actually a pretty nice click. Sharp, doesn't feel hollow. Fairly quiet. Slightly mushy maybe, but that's me being picky. The mouse wheel is really good. Roccat have pretty high quality on these things. Side buttons don't have much travel, and they're quite light to click in too. Build quality is really good. Just a slight deep rattle on the wheel, and the left mouse button seems to have broken on my wired copy. I have 4 Kains here, and this is the only time it's happened. So if you get one like this, just return it. In the latency testing, the 122 performed really well against the G903, just slightly slower, so I'll guess about 2 milliseconds or so. As for the wireless, I managed a good score in the human latency test, but in the bump test it didn't score as well. However, if you go into the software and put 0 debounce on, it starts to perform slightly better. That's usually just in case of double clicks, so it's up to you if you want it on or off. A few milliseconds isn't a big deal. In game, the sensor felt great of course. The sensors in the top mice are so good these days, they're not even worth talking about. You can check the video in the description to see my testing. In the hand it feels pretty good. It's a matte and very slightly textured plastic. It feels really smooth and high quality. Didn't get any slips either. And the cable is a fairly soft braid. Not quite as flexible as the top mice, but still quite good. Didn't give me issues. And it has the usual wireless setup with an extender and USB adapter. And because the cable slots in, I couldn't use it with other cables, so you'll need to rely on this one. I understand why they do this, but I prefer more standard connections. The mouse feet are fairly good too, tapered, glide well, didn't have a problem. They're also very thin. And as always, it uses Roccat Swarm software, so usual commands can be bound to the mouse, but there's no extra button other than the DPI button. And the DPI range is 100 to 16,000 in steps of 100. The battery life is meant to be about 50 hours, which seems a bit low for today's standards. You can just use it wired if you need to though. To conclude, I think we've been spoiled with top mice lately, and this one is really good, but I don't think it's competing with the better shapes, or the lighter mice. As always, you do have to find what's right for you, and this is a really nice mouse. But because it's different in a lot of ways, I think you're going to have to try it. Personally, I don't think I'm going to recommend it much, but I think it is worth a look. I would like to see them reduce the weight a bit more, and maybe work on the shell a bit more too. And a better cable, or longer battery life. But otherwise it's pretty great as it is. High quality, just the shape isn't as good as the top mice, in my opinion. Hopefully that explains it well enough. Thanks to Roccat for sending it out for review. Usual links in the description if you want to help support what I do. And as always, subscribe, like and share this video, and I'll catch you in the next.
Red wins the round. Combo kill.